with Audi, as I sort of mentioned earlier, to me the Murcielago is a pretty special car, because that to me has got the best of both worlds. You know, we've got the big parent company backing it to make sure the car's right, but it's still got just enough craziness in it, built into its DNA to be a Lamborghini.
Welcome to part 7 of our interview series with Chris Palmer. So far, we've discovered Chris's history with the Lamborghini Countach and Diablo, but today we're discussing the third V12 in his lineup of raging bulls, the Murcielago.
The Murcielago, I think the Murcielago has just aged so well. You know, it's like the Aventador. I'm probably in a minority, but this Aventador, I'm not going to say I don't like the SVJs, but they've got so many wings and spoilers on them and what have you. You know, this car in profile is such a fabulous looking car, just the profile on it. And I think the Murcielago is the same. And I know sort of a lot of people were sad and saying, oh, Lamborghini have been taken over by Audi. Now, the first of the, sort of, if you like, the Audi Lambos, the Audi era, was the last of the 6-litre Diablos. But you could sort of see, is it Luke, I'm trying to remember who designed it, the Murcielago. Is it Luke Donkveld or something? I think he was a Belgian or Dutch guy who designed it. But it's such a lovely profile from the side. And you look at the car and you think, oh, it's quite angular. But it only looks angular when you're sort of above it. If you actually look at it, it's got a lot of curves on it down the sides, and you know, still got that fabulous engine in it. They carried on through the Bizzarini engine all the way through up to this one. But it's a manual. It's in a really striking colour, Ithaca Verde. I'm told there are only 3 of them. There are only 3 Ithaca Verde manuals. It's lovely inside, lovely blue leather inside, but it's almost, to me, you've got the best of both worlds. You've still got the car looks outrageous, sounds outrageous, it's still a quick car, even by today's standards. But it's sort of also got the added benefit, if you like, of it's got some Audi reliability and built into it. You know, and maybe some of the purists will say, well, you know, that it's lost its character. It hasn't. Not for me, it hasn't. To me, it absolutely sits as, I think it's quite a Murcielago, particularly a manual, is almost a sweet spot, you know, for the Lambos, for the V12 Lambos. So I'm a great believer in mechanical sympathy. You know, don't never just sort of jump into things. You know, wait while it's warmed up. I think in one of the earlier Ferrari videos, when you asked me about the gearbox, you know, in the older Ferraris, first, third, fifth, forget second, forget fourth. I think perhaps what you may be alluding to with the, you know, you can't sort of just set off. It's 4-wheel drive, and then obviously it puts an enormous, you know, if you just sort of drop it in a manual car. So much like even going back to the Countaches and the Diablos. Not so much with the Murcielago, which I have to say has been very reliable. I've owned that car for, like I said, between maybe 10, 11, 12 years. Probably closer to 12 years I've had it. Touch wood. I've never had any bother with it. It's never let me down. I shouldn't say that because it probably will now, but it's never let me down. It's just, you know, serviced, you know, look after it. But above all, like I say, I'm a big believer in what I call mechanical sympathy. And if you look after the car, and you know, my car has been very reliable. What's it like to drive? It feels relatively heavy, but there again, that's in comparison to the modern stuff. This car, in comparison, feels steering-wise very, very light, but it weights up nicely. I don't think any of the big Lambos are sort of specific track, what you'd call a track car. You know, like I said, the clutches, particularly on Diablos, were notorious. I've heard stories about, even Ferrari Boxers or Countachs or Diablos, I've heard stories about people burning the clutch out, literally trying to get them onto a trailer. You know, so you've got to treat it with respect. So yeah, possibly the best way is, yeah, maybe just to get the car rolling before you fully, you know, floor it, kind of thing. You know, you probably save yourself a lot of pain. Yeah, like I say, back to my particular Murcielago, touchwood again, I've never, no, you know, I've got Adam at Lamborghini Leicester, looks after the car, looks after the SE30, looks after this. I find them quite reasonable, you know, plug for Adam at Lamborghini Leicester. And I think if you do it, you know, every year or every other year, depending how much you use in the car, it's not as bad as perhaps what people would make out. The glory days, I would say the glory days would have to be the later Diablos, because I think, you know, obviously the company had matured, they perhaps knew more what they were doing than on a bit of a wing and a prayer. I think with some of the early Countachs, there might have been some sort of build quality issues because the company would forever changing hands, it seemed, every 2 years, running out of money, they'd got little investment. You know, you love the idea of it. You know, you can get misty-eyed about, you know, okay, this is a rebuffed Ferrari customer who decides to build a better car, you know, it's folklore. But in reality, I think maybe some of the cars suffered, you know, at that time. But I think once, I know Chrysler obviously were involved, the Mimran brothers were involved. I think, for me, perhaps the more special cars would be around the later Diablos, you know, the sort of SE30s. The 6-litre Diablo, to me, is not as special, and I think it's a great car, but just my own personal choice. It's not quite as special as an SE30. And then the transition period, if you like, with Audi, as I sort of mentioned earlier, to me the Murcielago is a pretty special car, because that to me has got the best of both worlds. You know, we've got the big parent company backing it to make sure the car's right, but it's still got just enough craziness in it, built into its DNA to be a Lamborghini, you know, and what every schoolboy, every enthusiast thinks of Lamborghini. So that sort of era to me, the last of the Diablos and maybe the early Mercies.